To the Grand Rapids Public School Board meeting for Monday, June 17, 2024. We welcome and appreciate your presence at this meeting. We respectfully request that you turn off your cellular phones, refrain from clapping, cheering, or making audible comments. We invite you to make a formal public comment during our designated times, either regarding an agenda item or a non-agenda item, as well as both. If you'd like, just fill out two separate cards. Please limit your comments to the appropriate 3 minutes. Thank you very much, and you can find the comment cards in the entryways of the auditorium. Ms. Downs-Lewis, please call the roll.
Okay, Ms. Lewis is here. Ms. Melton?
Here.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Here.
Mr. Ross?
Here.
Jackie is excused. Ms. Wade?
Present.
Ms. Davis? Here. Mr. Eatman?
Present.
President Williams?
Present.
We have a quorum.
All right, next we have approval of our agenda. All in favor of our agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Hearing none, we will move on. Celebrations, Dr. Roby.
Good evening, everyone. And our first celebration is specifically around, we had two schools that we are saying farewell to. We have East Leonard as well as Stocking Elementary Schools, and this is directly tied to our strategic themes 2, optimizing and valuing all school options, and then also theme 6, creating a culture of collaboration and stewardship. And we are going to invite Mr. Executive Directors, Mr. Matthew Beresford and Dr. Carl Nelson, to talk about the schools that they previously had oversight over. So come on down, gentlemen. Come on down.
Good evening,
You're the
Dr.
next
Roby.
contestant.
Never got on that show. President Williams, members of the board, as you all know, we had to say goodbye to 2 school communities this school year, but the way that the events happened throughout the school year, and then the way our communications department captured those events into this video makes it pretty special. As you know, the East Leonard time capsule was found about a day before that evening event, and there was also banners signed in both schools at Stocking and East Leonard, and those will be stored, all those artifacts will be stored in the city archives. We had a few hundred attendees at both of them. We received over 100 responses from community members at both events for their preferences of what they would like to see in the future in both of those school buildings. So the communications team and the FMP team are breaking down that data of those responses. And the best part was the cupcakes by far. Dr. Nelson and myself both decided that as executive directors, your job is to pass out the cupcakes and refill the plates and keep them moving, keep the families happy. So we worked hard at that. Anything else?
No, Dr. Roby, President Williams, members of the board. It was just a wonderful night at Stocking and at East Leonard as well. Just the faces when they came up. I would happen to be in the kitchen with the cupcakes, and the memories of it used to be the stage, and so those who were there when it was the stage had memories of what they did on the stage. And so just listening to them and reminisce on their time at Stocking was just, it was really cool to just be a part of it and just listen to them in their, and the recall of when they were young. So it was just a great event to be at.
So with that, we'll start the video.
We are honoring decades of learning at Stocking and East Leonard Elementary Schools.
I went 4th, 5th, and 6th grade here.
I went here for kindergarten. I started when I was 4 years old, and I had Miss Rafferty.
When I
left in the middle of 5th grade. They were building this one, so I never got to go here. And my daughter went to here, and so I was part of the PTA back then.
I didn't like school.
We're walking up here, and I said, let me get a picture of you in front of the building, and then we'll go in. He said, well, I'll show you where the principal's office was. And I'm like, oh, gosh.
It's just a lot of memories. And then, like my twin sister said, make sure you take pictures of the room we were in.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I don't know the last time I was here, but it still looks the same.
I remember the gym. Our gym teacher made us do high stepping ponies like marching, which my arthritic knees can't even demonstrate of what they're like. And I had a lot of good memories of the friends that I taught with here as well.
It's so great to see so many familiar faces and new faces, old teachers, old students.
It's so beautiful outside. The architecture, the curly cues of the pillars and everything.
For many of you, it really is welcome back.
Well, I remember they took a picture of the class, and they said they were going to put it in the time capsule.
From sea to shining sea.
Nothing but good memories.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Thank you. Say again? Oh, there might be others. We were told that there were others, but we only found the one. Our next celebration, this is speaking directly to our partnerships with one of our extremely valued partners, and it's highlighting the work of Kids Food Basket. And I will invite our Director of FACE, Miss Jamie Masco, joined by Miss Bridget Clark-Whitney, who is the CEO of Kids Food Basket. And this speaks directly to theme 1, which is meeting scholars' whole needs, as well as theme 6, creating a culture of trust, collaboration, and stewardship. So welcome, ladies.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for having us here. So I'm Jamie Masco, and I am the Director of Family and Community Engagement, and I have next to me.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Bridget Clark-Whitney with Kids Food Basket. Thanks so much for having us.
And in addition to us being here, I do want to give a shout out. Kim Moore is back here.
Hi, Kim.
She is the VP of Communications and Community Initiatives for Kids Food Basket. All right, so today we're going to just talk about the connections with Kids Food Basket to our strategic plan. We'll talk about what Kids Food Basket is, what they do, our current collaborations, some grants that we are currently working on, and then a wish list and kind of like dreams in the future. So strategically, in our strategic plan, our partnership meets lots of our initiatives and strategies, meeting the holistic needs of students, ensuring equitable access and outcomes to our scholars, cultivating an engaged, impactful, and diverse workforce, creating a culture of trust, collaboration, and stewardship, and also enhancing the curriculum and program opportunities.
Thank you. So I want to begin by saying thank you for the years of support. We are going into our 22nd year at Kids Food Basket, and we have been partnering with GRPS for all 22 years. So started as an organization with less than $20,000 budget. In fact, we had $3,000 in the bank when we first started serving healthy, nourishing meals to kids in 2 schools in September of 2002. That was Strait Elementary School at the time and Sibley Elementary. Of course, we're still serving Sibley Elementary every day. So it's just been an honor to work with GRPS. We've been continuing to show up throughout the recession and throughout the polar vortex and throughout pandemics, oftentimes serving in parking lots and showing up in whatever ways that we can support your teachers, of course your families and your scholars, and it's been an honor. So throughout these past 22 years, we've grown from 2 GRPS schools to now we're serving 38 GRPS schools. We're also in 9 other school districts throughout West Michigan. We're serving about 10,000 healthy meals each and every weekday. healthy meals full of nourishing produce, and we're connecting kids to the produce that they're eating. So in addition to the healthy food access, we have an education program where kids are learning about where healthy food comes from, why that's important, making empowered choices around healthy food. So that's our education program. We're either going into the classroom, or providing it virtually, or children are coming through a field trip to our Kids Food Basket farm, where they have the opportunity to plant seeds. They'll harvest cherry tomatoes, then they get kid-friendly knives, and they cut those up and make friendship salsa, right? They're learning about green beans and how they taste one way when you pull them off the vine and totally different when you add butter and salt and cook them in our learning kitchen. It's been an awesome experience to see kids, most of the time who haven't had the exposure to a farm, to get really connected to Mother Earth and where our healthy food comes from, but leave not just empowered around healthy food, but wanting to establish healthy habits, the kind of healthy habits that last a lifetime. So what we have found, when the data continues to prove the intersectionality of healthy food access each and every day with nutrition education, that's where we move the needle, right? Because we can't do access without education. Kids don't understand why they should be eating healthy food. And we can't do education without access because that's inequitable. But the intersectionality of the two, ensuring that our children have both, is really where we've seen the greatest impact. And teachers tell us all the time, it really does transform the very fabric of their classroom when kids have access every day to healthy food, the kind of food that we are all meant to eat, right? We deeply believe at Kids Food Basket that healthy, nourishing food is not a privilege. Healthy, nourishing food is a right. And that's our work every single day. So we're, again, very excited to continue to be doing this work with GRPS, especially the new collaborations. Thanks again to Jamie and to many of our collaborators within your system. And it's been incredible, the ideas that we have on how we can continue to connect kids to healthy food.
All right. Do you want to talk a little bit about partnership?
Yes, so we'll start here. We've got some of our collaborators in the room today too, really exciting the ideas around Union High School, and in the pre-planning phase with the potential opportunity of turning Union High School into a theme school around agriculture. What we've found is when our kids come onto the farm, when the scholars come onto the farm, they're leaving wanting to be farmers. So it is a great pipeline for our children to be interested in agriculture. In Michigan, this is particularly important. We're number 2 in agricultural diversity across the state of Michigan, and number 15 for agricultural output of states around the country. So establishing a pipeline of kids that are interested in making a career out of agriculture. Further, the only other agricultural theme school in the state of Michigan is a small one outside of Lansing. So this could be a really amazing opportunity. We've been so grateful to be in the pre-planning stages about this opportunity.
And another partnership that we're working on is Taste Buddies Live. So I know that we talked probably last year or the year before about Taste Buddies, which is an online opportunity for kids to cook remotely with a chef. Taste Buddies Live is an in-person opportunity for the kids to cook with a live chef. And we actually kicked off Taste Buddies Live. These are our Taste Buddies characters. We kicked off Taste Buddies Live this year at the Kids Food Basket, and each family that participated borrowed a big bin of everything, like a mobile kitchen, if you will. So they each received their mobile kitchen. It had an electric skillet. It had all of the utensils necessary. Everything you need in your kitchen to create a meal is are in these bins. So every family that participated received the bin to borrow, and they created a Tuscan sausage skillet dish, compliments of Mr. Roby. It was absolutely delicious.
We call him also Chef Boyardee.
All right.
Yes. And it really was a fantastic opportunity for the families to cook together and then have a community meal versus just having a meal in their own home. They all sat together, and there was conversation and just talk about the food and how they made it and just the whole experience. So that's kind of where we're going right now with Taste Buddies, is we're going to the live. We have access to 35 mobile kitchens, and that each mobile kitchen will support at least one family. So that is one of the partnerships that we're working on. And then also we have 420 of our summer school, our Ignite Summer School scholars going to the Kids Food Basket this summer to learn about nutrition education and to experience the farm. So that's what's current.
Just so cool. Since 2020, we've had 5,700 GRPS scholars onto the farm to have nutrition education programming. And this year alone with the Ignite program, we'll have 2,000 students this year alone.
That's exciting. Yeah. So we were going to have Miss Sybil Johnson and Miss Jada Bradley here, but they weren't able to come, but they did share why they liked Taste Buddies Live. And they said, what Jada and I loved about Taste Buddies Live is it gave us time to bond and learn how to prepare and cook a delicious meal together. It taught Jada how to properly wash her hands before preparing foods and being careful not to cross-contaminate foods to prevent getting sick. Jada has learned how to cut peppers, onions, and broccoli, all because of Taste Buddies. We are so proud to be a part of Taste Buddies. And in this photo right here, they were making their Tuscan sausage skillet at Kids Food Basket. All right, so we have FACE and the summer school department and assessment. Our assessment department has partnered with Kids Food Basket, and we co-wrote these partnership grants. So we wrote 2 so far. Lake Michigan Farm to School grant, and then Michigan Health Endowment Fund. We don't know if they've been accepted yet. We're hoping that they will be accepted. And what that will allow us to do is then to continue our collaboration, starting with some intense planning and then collaborating and bringing more opportunities to our students.
Ideally, we would love to have every student in GRPS, specific to a certain grade level, come out to the farm and have the full nutrition education curriculum. So they're learning everything, again, from seeds and germination to actually cooking the food that they're growing and then harvesting. So that's one of our big goals. Another is the opportunity for a volunteer engagement field trip. So having kids come out to the farm, whether they're harvesting healthy fresh fruits and vegetables that then go to our food pantry partners, or if they're helping to create the 10,000 healthy nourishing meals that are going out. It's about citizenship, right? And being a part of a community and showing up for our neighbors. So we're really excited about some of these ideas and goals and where we can continue to take this collaboration.
Any questions?
I'm interested in learning more about the agricultural theme school at Union, and also how we'll incorporate the rich history of historical connection between BIPOC students and farming. I know we have a lot of students of color over there, and so just them learning about the history of farming and their ancestors and how rich that history is important to me. So I hope that is incorporated.
Yeah, great question. So to the first part of your question, and there's other individuals in the room here today too that can help to answer this. I can speak from Kids Food Basket's perspective. The idea around Union High School and evolving into a theme school for agriculture, I believe that the idea is about a 2 to 3 year old idea, and now has gotten some great traction. Kids Food Basket's role would be both helping to fortify the land to become a farm, and there's about 100 acres there, and so helping to develop that land into a learning and education center that would be outside, both with hoop houses and with some greenhouses, so that could happen year round, as well as some outdoor growing. And then also we would be part of the curriculum and the opportunity to teach kids, again, from germination to actually the cooking portion and everything in between with agriculture. So that's the role that we're hoping to play, and playing a part of that in this development of this theme school, and again, still in the pre-planning stages. In terms of the history and our students understanding, of course, the cultural competency around the food that we're growing as well, that's been a really important part of how we plan the farm on the front end. So that's the first answer to the question. We're going into classrooms, kids are learning about healthy fresh fruits and vegetables through taste testing, but they're also learning where herbs come from and the history of herbs, and then what's grown really well where. So for example, a great story that is coming up for me recently is about okra, and how okra wasn't native to Michigan. That wasn't. It was native to Africa, and it came over with families on slave ships. And that our children are learning about that, and they're growing okra, and then they're learning how to prepare okra and how to what different ways that we can eat okra and make that a healthy component of a meal. Yeah, right, there you go. But that's a great example of how we're doing that. We also work with an organization called Nora's Heaven. They provide some volunteers to come in and teach about different cultural competency with Middle Eastern foods. And then the West Michigan Hispanic Center as well. We've worked with them in terms of designing our sensory garden and what is grown in our sensory garden, and then also the education for kids as to where some of the flavor profiles came from and the history about that. So thank you for asking. That's been really intentional with our curriculum.
Thank you.
I would say that I've had the privilege of coming to Kids Food Basket a couple times and seeing the intentionality behind the programming, but also wrap it into the community. And so understanding that my colleagues, including the superintendent, is passionate around how we interact with community assets is very powerful to see. And so to hear about a 22-year relationship, and we know relationships, have their ups and downs, whatever the case may be, but to know that it's been something to be intentional about how we serve our students with the resources that we have, and of course, wanting to expand certain things will cost, right? And so to understand that there's been a long-term relationship from the birth of this program and partnering intentionally with GRPS is exciting and thankful. I'm in a state of gratitude for that, because we know that sometimes this is how some of our scholars are fed. Outside of the school. And so to know that that is something to incorporate, not just the learning, but also the families with the cooking and making that another tool to re-engage with families is powerful. And I think that's something to not be underestimated in regard to the power of that. So thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was just going to say, I'd like to, thank you both for being here. I would just like to echo Trustee Eatman's thoughts, and also just thinking about food justice. I know that's a huge thing that a lot of folks in Grand Rapids are passionate about, across the country too, but I think this is a really good first step into giving kids and families the tools to be self-sustaining, right? To be self-empowered, to learn how to make meals, to learn how to grow food, because I know that I did not learn that as a kid, and I think I've just gotten into these bad eating habits, as many of us have, right? Because we didn't know better, and it's so hard once you grow up in that to kind of, get out of that cycle. So I really appreciate this work. I'm excited to hear about the Union High School, possibility of turning it into an agriculture program. I think our kids really need this, and our family needs this, so thank you so much.
I do have one question in regards to this, is the education piece. And if you don't mind sharing, because I feel a little, I guess, more equipped in certain ways with some of the stuff that you shared. But part of that education that we also see across the United States is food waste, right. And what to do with that. And so do you guys have programming, or how are we teaching, or is there aspects of that also incorporates waste management and in addition to compost?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's such a great question. I'm really passionate about that. So we do have a compost component to our farming and agricultural programming. So kids learn all about composting. They're learning all about worms and how that breaks down. So that's the second part to your question, that education, and then how they can create that at home, right? How they can create compost piles at home and do that right in their backyards. So number one. Number two, about the waste piece. That's been really an important aspect of our education in the classrooms over the past 15 years, because we want to ensure that healthy food isn't wasted. And we understand that there's likes and there's dislikes. So we encourage every school we work with to have a share table in their schools. So if there's something a part of a sack supper that a child doesn't like, they can put that on the share table. So that's the day of, right? But in addition to that, on the front end, we're really intentional about these taste tests. So going into schools with trays of fresh fruits and vegetables. And the fresh fruits and vegetables that get the most votes, that's what we're planting in our sensory garden. So the kids are also designing what they're getting in those meals, which is really a cool aspect of human-centered design as well. I will share that when we experienced the most waste was through some of the federally funded school meals that required milk. So when the milk was required to go, that was specifically over the pandemic, when there was required milk in every meal, that oftentimes those milk cartons were found on the ground because it's shelf-stable milk. I don't think it tastes that great. Those are not our regulations. Those are federal regulations. So it's also something that we're lobbying for with child nutrition reauthorization at a federal level, because it's just something that was written into child nutrition in 1977 and hasn't changed. So yeah, thank you for asking that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Enjoy this hot, steamy day.
And we are at our first opportunity for public comment.
Didn't have any cards.
No? Okay, wonderful. And we will move along to our secretary's report.
Yes. I just had it here.
No, it's not even. I have my hotspot, so it has to be a computer thing.
Academic Achievement Committee meeting will be on Tuesday at 4:30 here in the board chambers. The Ad hoc Facilities Committee meeting was rescheduled for Monday, June 24th at 4:30 in the Lyman Parks Library Building, Conference Room 112.
All right, thank you. And next we have our GRPS Foundation report.
I'm sorry. Stephanie Andrews and Ms. Cheney will come forward. Stephanie's already forward.
That's okay. I didn't know if we were having change of like how we introduce people, so I was like, I'll just scurry down here. Could have a short meeting tonight, right? So anyways, good evening, Dr. Roby, Mrs. Williams, board. Excited to share with you guys, we've obviously, like you, wrapped up our fiscal year and just want to share some highlights. Thank you for many of you who were at Mindshare. It was amazing at Hausman Field. That was some great feedback we got from a lot of people. People really appreciated not having to dress up and wearing tennis shoes to a gala. So hopefully you enjoyed that as well. I'll share just some highlights about overall for our Mindshare event. We did raise over $212,000. And we made sure to keep the cost pretty low. And so we were able to net $175,000 for GRPS students. So thank you for all of you guys. During this last school year, we approved 35 teacher innovation grants that allocated over almost $14,000 directly to teachers for curriculum enhancements. We hope to double or triple that with some of the funds that we've raised, as well as getting more and more teachers to apply. So I think almost every teacher who applied this year was approved. So excited to continue to grow that program. The board is very passionate about it. We'll be doing a couple of workshop groups internally just to make sure that we are having an even just more defined rubric of how we're granting those. We were really open-minded about like what we would fund and what we wanted to do this year, and so now we'll put a little bit more wheels on the bus for that. The teacher, Teresa Weatherall Principals Fund, of course my phone is going out right at a key moment. Okay, hold on a second. Approved 22 principals requests, and we awarded almost $40,000 for field trips, camping experiences, summer reading supplies, and end-of-year celebrations. And we have connected many community resources this year for backpack supplies, teacher supplies, prom dress, and warm clothing. And if that's something that we want to continue doing, we've got some ideas on how we can do that even better next year. And once again, we provided our final award to GRPS at the end of the last board meeting of $400,000 for sports for this past school year. So for elementary and middle school sports, to be exact. You could have chimed in. Our plans for next year are continue to grow these funds. We know that we will come on board even more next year with ESSER dollars changing and shifting. Our goal is to, again, continue to support for teachers, principals, and still with our pillars of sports, arts, music, and experiential learning.
And thank you to everyone who came to Mindshare. It was a great event and great job.
Thank you.
I wasn't able to attend because I was out of town, and I was so jealous when I saw all of the photos. And so it was a clear hit, and brought back some old spirit, school spirit rivalries I saw as well. The social media chatter and especially around those polar bears, they are
Fierce.
just amazing. Y'all are a different breed. It's so just to see that, so it was amazing. So congrats on continuously doing great fundraising events on behalf of our scholars. And so to have that amount of money raised, deserved claps, but also praise because we are literally directly impacting our scholars, our teachers, and the support staff that also through that. So thank you again for your work.
Thank you. It was amazing to be able to have 200 students in attendance and helping in some capacity. So people love that interaction with our scholars. So that was awesome.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and some of the old school Letterman sweaters that was just
amazing.
wow.
I know.
So,
Amazing.
oh. Right. Great
Thank
job.
you.
Thank you.
All right, our next report is Public Safety Quarterly Update and Summer Safety. Mr. Larry Johnson will be presenting, and this is specifically around strategic themes 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6. Meeting scholars' holistic needs, ensuring equitable access and outcomes, enhancing curricular program opportunities, and creating a culture of trust, collaboration, and stewardship. So welcome, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. Good evening, President Williams, Dr. Roby, other distinguished board trustees. This is an update of some of the work that we have been working on since we last were in front of you, and then some of the additional work that we put together to address some of our summer programming. Again, as Dr. Roby alluded to, all of our work is based around our strategic themes. Tonight we're focusing on, again, 1 and 6, and that being meeting the holistic needs of our scholars, and then creating a culture of trust, collaboration, and stewardship. And in doing so, we just wanted to update on some of the things that we were working on, and that was expanding some of the work that we were doing in the community. And just continue to identify and work with different community partners, attending community events. This Saturday, the 8th, we had the opportunity to participate with the Family and Community Engagement at an event at John Ball Zoo. We started working on this event, I think back in February, with Mrs. Jamie Masco and her team, and we were able to give out 500 informational bags to parents that contain information on safe gun storage and gun safety programs, as well as we worked with Michigan State Police. We were able to obtain several hundred gun locks, but we dispensed about 150 gun locks to families at that event, as well as targeted families, and provided information. A great turnout, great day. We provided free entry into the zoo to it was for 500 families. We were registered to take on 500 families for that event. We also conducted a student mental health fair at Ottawa Hills High School, which we thought was a huge success, and brought in some of our local therapists just to have some conversations with our scholars and with our staff about some of the things the resources that are available in our community, and the things that they become involved in if they're struggling in that area. We have conducted public safety leadership training, where we're working with our leaders in public safety to just push them out more so they can lead some more of the community events, so we can kind of spread our wings a little bit and cover a little bit more than we have covered in the past. Again, we're going to continue under the framework, our framework for comprehensive school safety planning, and that is continuing to work with other departments and other community groups, aligning ourselves with the SEL, with the family and community engagement, and other operational groups within the district, so that all of our work is aligned. To date, we've started working on some of the things that we mentioned to you the last time we were in front of you, and we plan to roll out new crisis plans, updated crisis plans. This summer, we were able to dedicate one staff member who is working on that daily to align, update, and make sure that our plans meet all the state recommended guidelines. We have 8 summer projects in progress for our camera installments, and we're moving into our elementary buildings now with the installment of cameras in entryways and hallways and playgrounds of our elementary buildings. We purchased and received 18 walk-through portable metal detectors, and those have been deployed out to our buildings. It is our desire to use metal detectors during the summer to help eliminate potential problems as we address some of the community-wide issues that are going on. Our Raptor Visitor Management System is expanding into the high schools this fall. Will give us a better tracking of who's in our building as it relates to our visitors, and having all of our visitors not only just sign in, but going into an electronic database so we can track them, print out portable badges for them as they are inside of the building. And then our work with our Gaggle monitoring, and we expanded the Gaggle monitoring to monitor Gaggle, and that is a monitoring of district-utilized technology in sites where inappropriate comments and things are being said over that site, and we're expanding that to make sure that we're monitoring throughout the summer. And that is a 24/7 monitoring device where we actually have someone from our staff who's getting woke up in the middle of the night if necessary to make contact with parents. It's been a very useful tool for us. And we are moving into a different electronic incident reporting system, which we would think ready to be implemented this fall of 2024 as well. We've increased the number of crisis team members on our team. We are now working this fall to conduct another 32-hour School Safety Officers Academy with all the security officers in the entire county. This will be the 5th year that we've been able to participate in this program, and led by our teams. In addition, this summer, our teams this summer, our team officers will be instructing in the LOOP programs this summer, prevention programs in the LOOP programs, as well as time permits. And then we have completed and are completing just a couple of secured entryway projects that we have left. Availability of our staff, we just want you to know that we are our staff when available, and there's no conflicting appointments are available to meet with parent groups, PTO, PTA groups, and we have done that and we'll continue to do that. And we've developed and are going to work with communications to put out 2 different PowerPoint programs that will be placed in various media formats to promote safe gun storage, both to our youth and to our adults, and we'll be using those PowerPoints with our community groups this summer when given the opportunity, not only just with community meetings, but lunch and learns that we plan to do with some of our smaller community groups. We think we're more impactful when we can get in front of smaller groups to talk about safe gun storage and other preventive measures inside the school. And then we have talked about redesigning our dispatch system, will give us more precise times when our officers are dispatched to events, the time that it takes to get there. And this has been very helpful as we have been able to expand our staffing by filling some of the vacancies. Now we can track those officers and where they're spending their time at throughout the day. Some of our goals, again, we're adequately staffed. We are preparing to return to full-time mobile officers. In the last 10 days of school, the officers alone put in over 800 staffing hours to help close out the school year. And I think we had a pretty significant safe closing, but that 800 hours does not include the time from our youth advocates, our family support, our other community engagement folks, and the other staff members who were able to come out from the offices and hit the streets and help us close out our schools very successfully without any major incidents. Some of our summer 2024 programs, again, 6 buildings will be staffed. All will have security in every one of our summer programs this year, including our elementary programs. We will utilize metal detectors at various sites. Ongoing training and learning opportunities, we will continue to try to expand those and offer safety training not only to scholars, staff, but if given the opportunity, we will engage community as well. and we will be attending any community events to promote safe gun storage and gun safety programs to our scholars. So any programs that we can get into, we are making sure that we are not only going, but we are with our connections with the Michigan State Police, who has promised us an unlimited number of gun locks. We will continue to pick those gun locks up and deliver them to our families as they request. And then we will continue to work with the City of Grand Rapids Police on their curfew awareness campaign and encouraging our scholars not to be out during those curfew hours. End of the year celebrations, we celebrated with our staff on the 7th of June, the largest celebration that we have. 5 of our officers received the Merit Award. Over 60 individual awards went to officers. Officer Milagros Hernandez was selected by her peers to represent the department this year as the Officer of the Year. I know Dr. Roby had the opportunity to attend the event, great event. All the officers the awards are selected by their supervisors, and the Officer of the Year selected by their peers, and they elected her to represent them this year. Again, how can you help us? Again, continue to celebrate with our officers and the department's success. We want to get feedback on areas where we can improve and on opportunities where we can engage with other families in the community as well. And then finally, we will continue to work throughout the summer and start looking at fall-related programs and how we can help not just on the hardware side of things, but also on the hardware side of things, and working with community student engagement, trying to integrate our programs with SEL and making sure that from a holistic approach that our students are receiving everything we can give them to help make them safe when they're inside of our buildings. Questions?
I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
And I could have not caught something when I was trying to catch through and read. My computer is not accepting internet right now. But can you talk to us about what the communication plan is for the gun safety? I know you're going to be partnering with the state of Michigan Police and GRPD, as you stated, to show up at aspects of those community events, but for those who don't attend community events, like what is the communication going to be so families and or scholars are aware that these bags or gun safety components are available to them?
We sent out a lot of information from the communications office. Again, the event that we held at the zoo, we started planning that event back in February, and working with family and community engagement. Our communications office sent out a lot of information to our families to let them know that we'll be offering a free day at the zoo. We'll do similar communications plans and anything that we do and any programs that we can get connected to. What we're doing right now is looking for opportunities to connect with others who may be having programs already to see if we can get a table at some existing events within the community, as well as reaching out to some of our churches to see if we can come into some of their summer programming as well, to talk about gun safety programs in some of their summer revivals that they're having.
So I know to actually add to that, I think you probably already aware of this, but the City of Grand Rapids special events calendar and then Experience Grand Rapids calendar will have all the free community events that's happening. So that could be another opportunity to figure out which ones you want to be at, because they are actually also culturally specific as well. So therefore you can hit multiple stones or multiple things with one stone. My second question for you is around the mechanism of safety. How can you tell us how the 6 to 8 schools that will have the either direct officers or the patrolling, the mobile patrol officers, like how was that selected, and was that based on need and ask, or was there just another assessment that was done that you guys saw that was fit?
Summer programs.
Just the summer program.
This is the summer programs, and we've always staffed our middle and high schools for summer programs. This year we expanded it to the elementary school to make sure we have an officer there who can also be there to help teach preventative programs when given that opportunity during the loop portion of the summer programs.
That's perfect. Okay, I wasn't expecting that. I was like, what
Right.
is that noise?
My
My last question for you is around, previously we had a couple of people or parents would come up or teachers, I should say, that came up and talked about some of the buildings that they were in, and I don't recall specifically what those buildings were, but concerns around like securing the buildings and that. Would that be also part of those projects that you listed? There was ongoing projects that you had going on, quite a bit of them. Is that part of those projects?
Our assessments that we've been working on for the last year, some of those assessments are giving us an opportunity to go and look at some of the locking hardware, but all of our doors are locked all the time. I mean, there are some other growth opportunities we think we can have this summer by just looking intently at some of the doors that we may have to put some local alarms on that off the beaten path doors where doors can't be open or propped in the building. So we're looking at all aspects. Our mobile cars will spend a lot of time working on assessments, whereas our guys inside the buildings will focus on the students and scholars in the buildings.
Awesome, thank you.
Yep.
I have a question.
Oh,
You spoke about the 18 metal detectors that have been delivered to buildings. Can you speak a little bit to that as far as, I know they're portable, so they can be moved. Is there a plan in place for how to communicate with families on when they can expect to have them, or are we planning to have them be random on purpose, or how are we communicating that to students and parents so that they know what the protocol is?
We have always ran a random and unannounced. We think that is the most impactful way to use metal detectors. Toward the end of last year, we at some of our schools, we ran them every day. We like to give the building administrator some input in terms of how they want to communicate with parents and how we want to utilize those devices. We believe that with a lot of the input from some parents, that some of the parents want to see them all the time, some do not. So we're trying to find that happy medium, but we just listening to what's going on in our community, and then it is in our student handbook that we have announced to parents that we will use them and have been using them for many years. The metal detectors that we just recently purchased just happens to be less intrusive to our younger scholars, and so we wanted to utilize those devices more in the building.
Okay. And would you say, is it safe to say that every building has experienced the metal detectors at some point, or not yet?
No, they have not. I would say that all of our K-8 buildings, K-8 and middle and high schools have experienced a level of metal detectors, but not our elementary schools.
Okay.
Unless that elementary is connected to a K-8, they have not experienced the use of walk-through metal detectors.
good?
Mr. Rodriguez.
Okay, yeah. Thank you for this presentation. I'm really glad to, unfortunately I couldn't make it to the John Balzo event. I don't know if anyone from the board made it. But I'm happy to see this work happening. I was really excited to hear about it. I heard some great things from the community, and it's great to hear that we've passed out so many gun locks and so much information. I know that at the last meeting we had, we talked about not trying to make this issue political, and of course it's just, I mean, I think at its nature, right? Gun safety, anything to do with guns is political. And I know while it's not our job as board members to necessarily facilitate the, operational work and say, oh, you should partner with this person, I would love to see work leaning more into the community organizations that do gun safety education. And I'm only thinking of this because, I know plenty of folks that have had experiences with MSP, with GRPD, undocumented folks. I don't want that to deter anybody from coming to get this information. And that's just something that I had in mind. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, just wondering if you can talk a little bit, you had said, and I've heard you say before, your department is really interested in hardware more so than hardware. Can you tell me a little bit about what that means? I didn't necessarily see anything reflected in the presentation.
I do. So when we talk about hardware versus hardware, when people think about safety and security, oftentimes they're thinking about cameras and weapons detection systems and metal detectors being on the hardware side, locks and things of that nature, the infrastructure. When we talk about the hardware, we're talking about mental health first aid, behavioral threat assessments, SEL programming. We're talking about MTSS, suicide protocol training. Those are some other things that we need to work with our scholars on, work with our families on, because if we can get to the hardware, these programs, integrating these programs into our curriculums, and then the hardware of some things, some of the hardening, the target hardening that we have to do would be more effective, because you would not need those target hardening if you can get to people thinking differently in the building.
And so are your security officers trained in that way, and they perform those functions within the school building?
Some of our security officers are being trained that way. It's our goal to get everyone trained. All of our security officers have been through critical incident stress management and critical incident stress debriefing, as well as mental health first aid. We also require them to go through crisis prevention and intervention, but we're looking at some other programs. We're coming out with a new suicide protocol program that all of our guys will be involved in. But we really lean on SEL and the folks in the SEL department to lead some of that work. But we make sure that our security teams are connected to that work.
Anyone else?
What school is Officer of the Year at?
Burton Middle School, Milagros Hernandez. She's been around about 7 or 8 years. Just a hardworking young lady. You see her around just about everywhere, and the officers selected her this year.
I would love to have her. That's important. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, our next presentation is our second semester of the 23-24 school year discipline data SEL update, and that will be by Executive Director Mr. Mel Atkins, and this is aligned to meeting our scholars' holistic needs, as well as ensuring equitable access and outcomes. And this is done twice a year. Oh, Mike got his phone.
Quick second.
Good evening, President Williams, Dr. Roby, members of the board. Again, Mel Atkins, Executive Director of Community and Student Affairs. And before we get started, you will receive disaggregated data that you've seen before. Just didn't have it today. You will receive that information as well. So connected to the strategic plan, this is connected to strategic theme 1 and 3, meeting holistic scholar needs and ensurable equitable access and outcomes. What you're going to see today is a similar structure you've seen before, but we've just in the beginning, I'm going to end with some points of start with points of pride and end with points of pride as well, because there are some things that are going well, but we want to tell the full story. And so the first thing you see here is buildings with SEL leadership teams, and there are 17 of them, report higher scores on our SEL panorama education surveys. And remember, those are scholar surveys, scholar, staff, and caregiver surveys. And the scholars take the surveys in the fall and the spring. And so we see positive traction when it talks around school climate on that particular survey. Four out of the 5 schools that the SEL team has been working with for multiple years have seen reductions in suspensions at a pretty high rate. You see at an average of 48 incidences, reducing comparing one year to the next year. And so we know the multiple years working with the team is showing traction. And then, so every school does have a mental health clinician, and so it's not a one-to-one match yet, but everyone has at least access to a clinician at some point of the day or the week. And also in collaboration with KSSN, it helps support that structure as well. We're excited to say also we have 6 additional restorative practices trainers will be in the district by August 2024, which will bring our number up to 9 for the district. And the reason why that's so important is because we can offer kind of the train-the-trainer model. We can offer on-site training with 9 people through various cohorts. And so in saying all that, we know there's some work to be done. And the next few slides is just that's what it's going to show. And so what you see here are 3 different data points. And this is going to show you I'm going to start on the far left. It's going to show you 16% of our scholars have been suspended at least one time, with grades 6 through 8th again has the highest rates of suspension at 28%. Then at the top right, what you're going to see is we added a column. So I'm going to start with K5. How you read it in the K5 division for the 23-24 school year, there were 1,669 total suspensions made up of 691 students or scholars. And so the question was, well, how many scholars do we have in K5? And so what you see in K5, there were just over 6,800 or 6,840 K5 students that ended the school year. And the same thing you see with 6, 8, and 9, 12. That equals, there were a total of 4,918 suspensions this past school year, made up of 2,226 scholars. How does this compare? So the bottom right now, comparing the last 3 school years, the end of 2022, 23, and 24, there is a slight uptick in the suspensions when you're comparing those 3 years. You see for the 24 school year, there was approximately 8 total number of suspensions, but we had a few hundred higher number of suspensions. I said that wrong. So there was 8 higher number of students that were unduplicated, just suspended at least, only counted one time. The total number of suspensions did go up. Breaking down a little bit further, this next 3 slides are going to show you K5, 6, 8, and 9, 12. And so at the K5 level, 5th grade being the highest rates of suspension. You see 18% of our scholars have been suspended at least one time in 5th grade. And then the top violations were physical aggression and fighting. The disproportionality is going to hold true for all divisions, K5, 6, 8, and 9, 12. And on the right graph, which what you're going to show is African American students make up 30% of the K5 population, but make up 56% of the suspensions. At the middle school level, at the dark blue on the left, you see the 7th grade scholars make up the highest rates of suspensions in this grade band at 32%. The top violations were fighting and physical aggression, and forgot to say, and then it's happening in the classroom the most. And so again, the proportionality is very similar to what you saw at the elementary level. African Americans make up 30% of the 6-8 population, but 57% of the suspensions. And one last data point similar to this, the other 2 were at the high school level. 9th grade has the highest rates of suspension at 24%. The top violations are fighting and other behavior, and this one is happening in the hallway. Again, the disproportionality is happening. African Americans make up 31% of the high school numbers, but make up 53% of the suspensions. And so what do buildings have? And so we looked at, and so on the inside is what everyone has, and then I'm just going to explain a little bit, and then on the outside is what some schools have and what we're going to do about it. And so schools, we've talked about curriculum for a couple years now. And so at the K5 level, this was the first year we had caring school community. At the K5, K8 level, at the middle school level, we have second step. Next steps is high school, and that's coming. I'll talk about that in just a minute. Around professional development, I know when you look at the data, I know there's a lot of alarm, at least internally. I know it should be externally as well. When we look at the disproportionality, what happens with suspensions. And so that is a piece that I know I'm going to talk about in a second. But besides what we do with the Office of Equity and Inclusion, there also is training around the panorama data, how to access your data, restorative practices, SEL 101, and the 3 signature practices that we've been doing throughout this year. And then also, schools have community partners. You heard Kids Food Basket here earlier today. There's a great many other partners that we have. Every school has some form of community partners or partners, and we know that helps with this effort. We know mental health support is something that is relatively new the last couple of years, that we're proud to be able to offer here internally, but also with the community partners as well. And then schools do have support staff, such as, I know Mr. Johnson just got done talking around, it's the hardware, so what's in your heart, so what's the hardware. And taking that approach, that systemic, that kind of systems approach with that idea and the concept, leads a lot of the support staff in their thinking and their work. We know schools on the outside, for the 23-24 school year, for example, KSSN. And so KSSN is I think a model that has proven to make a difference over time. And we know 14 schools is not enough. And so we're excited to say that we're adding 3 new schools next year. We're up to 17. And the goal is over time to have the district a KSSN district. And so that is the goal, but it takes time for KSSN kind of to raise the funds and us to scale up, at an appropriate pace, but that is the absolute goal. Bringing back PBIS, and so we know some schools have structures around PBIS, and so we're looking under our MTSS structure, what that looks like, how do we do that, and so it's not just some schools and not all schools, and so that's definitely a touch point we want to do. I talked to them a little bit about SEL leadership teams. There are 17 schools that have SEL leadership teams, but we have more than 17 schools. We are aware of that. And so we know the goal is to continue to scale up as quickly as possible. We want to make sure that we have supports in place to offer these schools. And so we're continuing to refine our plans to make sure we can offer leadership supports to all schools. And then counselors, we know at the high school and middle school level are counselors. So it may not be counselors, but it may be counselor type structures that we want to make sure that we started to look at the K-8s and elementary levels. And so that may be community partners, it could be counselors, or it could be other support services such as around those realms that we know we want to offer our scholars. In Promise Neighborhood, we know Promise Neighborhood is a fantastic grant, and we know that's on the southeast side. Well, we're looking for that concept, at other sides of town. So it may not be quote unquote Promise Neighborhood, but we know the structure of a community structure when the school is in the hub, and then everyone comes together. That's tried and true, and that works. And so we know that's kind of the North Star, one of the goals that we want to go over time. And so for the district, what have we done? What the actions taken? And so I mentioned around the Office of Equity and Inclusion, what they were working with around culturally responsive professional learning series. And so they did have a culturally responsive professional learning series. And that was really creating, it was three different focus areas they were looking at: creating culturally affirming schools and classrooms, increasing scholar belonging, agency voice, and empowerment, and reducing academic disparities and exclusionary discipline for Black and Latino scholars for that effort. Cultivating equitable outcomes, a learning community also was a piece that they led. And then also the CPI, nonviolent crisis intervention and de-escalation training as well. And so we know this is not the data is alarming. We know that one strategy or it's not going to work in isolation. And so this is why we're trying to take a systems approach to how do we begin to fix the core of what's happening. I mentioned SEL leadership teams. We are part of the 17, but we know there's much further to go. We are happy to say that for the first year for elementary and middle schools, it seems like the curriculum it was a great year one. There are some things that we have learned over the way year one of implementing the SEL curriculum, and then high school. What we're doing is we should be coming pretty soon to a resolution on piloting two separate curriculums at the high school level. Some people, and there's different needs, but we know we want to pilot for this year to make the right decision. But high schools are on track that will have additional level of support that they did not have this year. And then it's been about a year and a half, I believe. We've been working with the Kent Intermediate School District on this. We have a DIT team, a district implementation team, around the MTSS framework, and so that continues to go. And the reason why that's so important, because that's going to put the structure in place for a lot of things. It can be discipline, it can be attendance, it can be academics, it can be a lot of things around systems and structures. And so attacking that from that lens is extremely important. And there's a core team that's been working on this for a little bit, and we're looking forward to beginning to work with schools as well next year. Additional points of pride that we did, that was a long time in the making, was monthly newsletters. And the reason why this is important is another touch point for our staff to understand around SEL. And so sometimes you can't come to the professional development that is offered, but if you can get tips and things on a monthly basis, that's very helpful. What's not on here, what else I'm excited around is we did launch a a web page on our district website that has a plethora of resources for families, caregivers, staffs, scholars. Youth advocates, behavioral specialists, fully trained in restorative practices is another one. And so the reason why that's so important, one, it was intensive training. It was a 16-hour training, but getting role groups trained in how to, this is one of the alternatives to suspension around restorative practices. And so that's really important to have, that level of staff. And then now we go to the next level. And then I know I think Jamie left, but the family and community engagement team, I'm working with them around the dine and dig nights. There were five family caregiver dine and digs SEL nights. And so those were direct related to SEL. What we started to do is a lot of our family trainings as well has components of SEL built into them as well. So next steps, what's coming. And so continuing with restorative practices and SEL as it relates to professional development, the culturally responsive teaching, the SEL curriculum, knowing that there's going to be refresher trainings, and at the high school level, implementing that training, but offering professional development. Discipline practices, continuing to give supports around alternatives to suspension, the resources for caregivers, and restorative type questions. So we know sometimes the questions we ask as adults can trigger or not trigger someone with the response. And so it's important that we're all trained on what questions and what types of questions to ask and when to ask them. And then we know climate and culture play a big role in this. And so it's really listening to scholars. They're telling us through the surveys or if you talk to them in the hallway, kind of if they want to be there and why don't they? And a lot of times it's connected to an adult, a caring adult, does someone see them? Reflecting on your data. And so this is not I know we talk about this 2 times a year at this table, but having those frequent conversations, at the building level, at the district level, before it becomes what we saw today, what can we do about it? And then continuing with the SEL district team. We did form an SEL district team. We're excited to say, and the reason why that is important, and I want to end with that one, is because we know it's bigger than one department. It's the system. So when you think of, for example, HR practices, you think of business office, you think of food service, et cetera, we're all in one accord around what this is. What can we do about it as a system? The more than likely, the data will change in our favor. So at this time, I take the questions.
Thank you for the presentation. Quick question for you. I remember last year, and we had something around this. We discussed through the engagement of the presentation around the suspension rates. Yes, they're staggering numbers, and we know that in that regards, and it's good to see some of those updated numbers still alarming, right? And so my question really stems from last year, and again for this year, is when we talked about these suspension rates and you engaged with us, we discovered that there was aspects of how are people defining certain offenses and how that was up to the individual, potentially the individual teachers and or schools to have their own definition around how someone might deem disrespect, right? For an example of that. In that discussion, we talked about whether it be some more guidelines or rules or something surrounding the aspect where that can be more streamlined to perhaps maybe disrupt some of these numbers, so therefore it is more consistent regardless of the school that they're at regarding why and how students are getting suspended. Has that change occurred, and if so, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I do remember that conversation, and thank you for bringing it back up to this table. And so what we're doing now is you're going to see some updates in our Scholar Resource and Responsibility Guide. And so think of, I used to call it the Student Policy Handbook, but now it's called the Scholar Resource and Responsibility Guide. And getting clear on what that is, that's where that's going to land. And so the team is taking that feedback, and it's getting updated now. And typically that comes out right before open houses and orientation. So that's when you should see some revised language.
And will there be thinking about that and thinking for that answer, would there be some form of training that all of the teachers and staff will go through? Because I'm staggering at the fact of the populations, but yet there's a higher number of certain populations being suspended. And so for me, to disrupt that also means there needs to be some cultural intelligence training, some other aspects of that, because it could be some cultural misunderstandings that are aiding into these higher suspension rates. And so are we planning on doing some form of cross training for all of the teachers in or schools so that way they're understanding what constitutes as what as it relates to students in these suspension rates?
I'm gonna take that one. And so with respect to trainings, we have, you think about trainings from a very formal, what are our priorities? And we have so many hours that are contracted with staff that we have to spend for professional learning training. In addition to that, we try to extend professional learning training experiences to differentiate around some of these things where staff have opportunities through lunch and learns or outside of their contracted school hours and school days. And so typically, unless they're a part of a special team or if it's specifically to their job, there's not a training that we would mandate that all staff would attend because we want to, our focus has to be, and I think we have 18 hours approximately of professional learning over the course of the year, 3 days. And so to spend, 18 for a school year, and so being very intentional about what are our high leverage components, but then also offering other ways for people to get trained.
So I thank you for taking that. I guess to me that doesn't, for one aspect of it with the multi-tiered support system, I understand the different components of different systems to approach this as an issue. But to me, if we are still having individuals define what is deemed as disrespect or any disruption is not a standard, how do we, or how do you, more in fact, expect to, or how are we disrupting those numbers as a result of that?
Sure, I
If
think
the
that's a good-
training is, and that's the training is,
I
I
think
understand that contractually what has to happen, but.
And so what I would say is that when you can thread together, because oftentimes you have subject areas and then also thinking about how do you thread together getting more bang for the buck, so to speak. And so through our professional learning experiences, threading together some of those other things around engagement and in other opportunities for learning that may be tied to the content area. When I was just looking back on the areas of discipline data, because we have 2,000 different adults, how I might define defiance may be very different than how you define defiance. I don't know that you'll ever fully norm that, but if there's a range of those different things, and that's also why the restorative practices and some of the other things that we're trying to build within, so it may not necessarily be a out of school suspendable kind of thing, but are there some other things? And I know that even capturing this here, that doesn't mean that there were only 106 areas of defiance over the course of a school year. I mean, when you think about the number of children that we have in our district and the number of different people, there's 106, relatively speaking, is relatively small when you think of 14,000 students. There's 106 incidents.
Yes, and even if with the 106 incidents, but the majority of them are disproportionate towards certain groups who are being more suspended as a result, there's a missing piece. And so for me, when I'm thinking about this from an equity standpoint, this isn't equitable in that regards, because if they're smaller of the population, but being suspended, thank you. I'm like, extended, that didn't make sense. Suspended, thank you, at a higher rate, that's troubling. And I know that's troubling for all of us as a whole, so I'm not trying to negate the fact that these are staggering numbers, but they are existing. And so when I'm thinking about disruptors to that, I'm looking at it from a full picture, holistic standpoint, which leads into my second question in regards, and I don't know if this falls under your particular umbrella, but when we had Principal McGee come to us and for the approval of that
playbook?
That playbook that he also mentioned, thank you, would be a disruptor to some of the stuff that we're seeing there. Has we seen any results of that? And because it's been a year, so has that been proven successful? Because if so, could we duplicate that? And maybe that could be a disruptor to some of the things as we look at multi-tiered systems of support.
I think you're talking about probably, I think Eric Thomas.
Whatever his playbook was.
And he had there's a playbook, there's a speaker that really hits on this. I know Innovation Central was working through that. That's not under my purview, so I don't want to misspeak. But I'm aware of what you're talking about.
It was a tool. I was like, get it if that's gonna work.
Yes.
Is there anyone else?
Yeah, I mean, it is helpful too that the suspensions are really, I think, continue to be formally done by principals. So the training wouldn't necessarily need to be all 1,800 staff members. If I'm understanding correctly, unless that's changed, there is sort of the gatekeeper of suspensions, which should be a pretty approachable group for this kind of training that Trustee Eatman's speaking of. I just appreciate the holistic nature you approach this with, because it's such a complicated piece. It's not as if you can say one thing is going to solve it. So the complication is really important. And I want to assert that the presence of staff, full-time staff that are fully trained and highly qualified is a huge impact on our results we're seeing right now. But I guess that's also a question. Have you done any sort of feedback on the individual components? Like what is missing? How is this, impacting the specific, communities that we're serving? Is that happening at all? Because I guess I'm wondering at what point are the results not good enough where we say, okay, let's do something different? Because we haven't seen a whole lot of change, of course, over the couple of decades the 2 decades that we've been doing a lot of these similar support pieces. So I'm asking really 2 questions. One is, how are you asking for feedback within the components that we're putting in place? And then 2, at what point is it good enough to say continue?
So, great questions. What we've been doing is collecting feedback. Some of it is, i.e. survey driven. Some of it is, after professional development. Professional development may be at different times when you're first learning, when you've already learned it, or at the end. And so there's different levels of professional development that you collect feedback on. Some of it comes from scholars, and that comes from various ways. A lot of these relationships that staff have at the building level of getting that information and collecting it in some type of systemic way. And then the second piece you're saying is it's a tough one because it's a very, I think, nuanced. It's like you said, it's not if you just do this and then this happens. Everything is interconnected with that. And I know staffing plays a piece in it. And so every year is not the same. The data has been very similar. But I think we are, every year, I think we're positioned a little bit differently. I would argue that the supports we've have now, I don't remember ever having, at least in my 20-plus years here, around when you think about a comprehensive approach when you think about it from a mental health lens, really to focus on equity and inclusion, when you think around the instructional framework that we have around it, because some of that, is the rigor we have in the classroom. All those things that are connected. It does take time. I know I say this every year, what we look at the best practices, because we have the leading experts out there with Castle, for example, is partnering with us literally on a weekly basis. When we're on the right track, we just have to see it through.
I think something that's really important that Ms. Milton is alluding to, and something that we've actually been just recently wrestling with, is we have multiple forms of data, and one of the things that we have to do, because we're a data-rich district, it's the second part of the analysis and really kind of peeling back the layers of, we've collected kind of both quantitative and qualitative data, and being able to say, this is the secret sauce, so to speak. And it might be the secret sauce for building A, but then something different for building B. And that's one of the things that we're trying to get a little bit more intentional about, is looking at, very broadly and then narrowing it down to individual schools to see what has been more effective. And I think where quite honestly, we're not there yet, but trying to build out some of those systems around, inquiry to see, what is it that we want to have, and then how are we going about developing that?
Thank you for that comment, Dr. Rowe, because I also see that need that Trustee Melton also alluded to, so I appreciate both of you kind of highlighting that. I just had two questions. One is what does a school need to develop their SEL team? I know you said you had 17 out of all our schools, so what does that look like, or why do we not have one in each school?
And so some of it was capacity for for our kind of trainers. And so it's important that we get more people trained. This year we had 3 our SEL consultants that were leading the work. We're in the process of adding a 4th SEL consultant that can really go into the buildings on a weekly basis and give that type of support is one. What our buildings need is one, it starts with leadership. And so because you recognize, I know you recognize coming from a building, there is a lot going on, and it's hard to, and we don't want to always armchair quarterback, a principal, and when they're ready, or their team is ready to, say, take on this initiative. And so there were, 17 schools that were, and we're trying to help the other schools that were maybe not ready this year, but what can we put in place so they can be ready next year? Is really the thing. Instead of doing it to them, we want to work with them.
I appreciate that. I know, yeah, as you said, right? I know sometimes there's so much going on, it's hard to take on another thing. And I guess I did have kind of a comment in the back of my head was, I appreciate all the work that I see happening. And I know that with the proper support and the proper staffing, it can, work wonders. We can have the results that we want to see. But I think that until we, tackle our vacancy issue, that's going to be something that we're going to struggle with. Because I remember as a youth advocate, I'd get pulled, to sub every single day. I couldn't do restorative practices. So, I'm not saying, you're not doing the work. I appreciate the work you're doing, but I think that's a huge component of it. And I know I feel the struggle, right, having been in it before. But then secondly, I wanted to ask too, when do staff members have the opportunity to take the PD courses related to, SEL kind of leadership strategies or what you alluded to? Is it something that's built into the already existing like PD that folks take getting ready for the school year? Is that something kind of extra that they can decide to do on their own?
Well, this is something, so good question. We did leverage ESSER funds to really, pay staff to do something after work hours.
Right.
And so to continue that effort, we're, looking through budgets now to figure out how do we sustain some of this effort, because we know that it's a strategy that we cannot lose. And so it's hard to do it during the day, because you're doing your regular job. And so it's really trying to find the best time that, or the training. Sometimes it's going to the building and modeling, and you're right on the job. And other times it could be on a Tuesday or Saturday or Thursday. Just the team just really meets them where they're at.
Yeah, and I know I was always looking on CALPA for extra things. I know not everyone's like that, right? And so we have to offer that incentive. But I appreciate that, and I hope to all the teachers that watch these meetings, I don't know how many watch on YouTube, but I'll go do some training. We love CALPA. We love PD.
So, go ahead.
Are the 17 schools, are those schools that are having specific issues with high suspension rates or disproportionate suspension rates?
There were a lot of the schools that were, and so we know that we're having the rates. I talked around 4 of the 5 schools we worked for 2 years that have went down. I anticipate the question. I did check, even though it was 1 year, 9 of those 17 schools, even the first year, showed reductions in suspensions.
And then, along with training, I'm thinking about accountability. Are we holding or even having conversations with schools that show like high disproportions in suspension rates across their black and brown students versus white students.
It's a collective effort in the sense that we're really trying to say trying to get to the core issue. What is really going on? I don't think we have tacked it and saying, oh, you're in trouble. We're trying to say what is going on, what supports can we collectively work together on. If we don't have them, GRPS is rich in community support. There's ways we can do that. So that's more been the approach instead of kind of the opposite.
I had one more question,
Okay.
but I can't remember it.
That's okay. It might come back.
Well, I have a couple questions for you with regards to, I'm wondering how many of these supports that we have put in place will be impacted by the ESSER dollars? I know that there were a lot of ESSER dollars that went towards social emotional learning, things of that nature. How is that going to take effect in this? That's one. And then two, with regards to the numbers, are the restorative justice resolutions included in that? Or are these numbers,
Restorative
this is
practice?
the restorative practice, right? So those numbers were pulled out of that. Am I to assume that correct?
And so let me address that second part first. And so what you're referring to is are the restorative practices that happened, really, without those, it would have been significantly higher. And so a lot of the restorative practices conversations that happened help mitigate maybe a possible suspension. Yeah, I'm not going to say it never happened. Sometimes it still had to happen, at least in today's world, and we're hoping tomorrow it does not happen. But we know. I didn't pull that information, but there's been hundreds and hundreds of restorative type practices or conversations throughout this school year. The first question you had is around ESSER, and so good question. There was a lot of resources, and so I'm gonna start with mental health support. And so we had 21 of our 24 mental health clinicians were funded through ESSER. And so I'm proud to say that we're adding 3 additional to get to 27. And so we're using a couple of different funding sources to do that. And so it's grant funded, that we're using, but we knew that was a priority, so we put that, kind of to the top of the list of what that looks like. The thing that we really have to work through is we're doing this now, and we're hoping that, wrap this up in the next few weeks, is looking at how do we continue to compensate staff for the work they do after school. And so stipends, we've been paying stipends for the trainings and supports and things of that nature, and this is where we're working through now. But positions, if you had the position, either through SEL or mental health, that continues. No positions got cut. We were able to find some grant dollars, either existing grant dollars or new grant dollars, to help support that effort. And some of it, even some of the information you can do, we learned reimbursements, through some non-billable hours and things of that nature that we can do to offset some of the costs with that. But we're fully committed to this work. And then we know if they're just naturally thinking there's going to be something over the year that ESSER was funding that we just can't pick up. Well, we just got to make the right decisions on what that looks like. But that's kind of still ongoing. I don't think it's 100% settled at this point.
And I look forward to the disaggregated data. I have a lot of thoughts. I'm hoping that could shed more light, and then I will definitely forward my questions once I get a chance, because my mind is kind of racing. I think it's, I know it can take time to turn the corner, but it's quite troublesome. Ms. Ross?
Yeah, I apologize.
I think Ms. Davis
Disaggregated data, what specifically are you talking about? I may have missed that.
By building, and that'll be,
Thank you. No, I was just curious. I didn't know if I know there was some conversation, about potential data showing inequities and whatnot. And I guess in that regard, we want to, I guess, uplift and encourage the approach in dealing with teachers with, I won't say a soft hand, but like you said, it's really not a matter of being in trouble. I don't think, I mean, of course, we all have our biases about whatever, but even my own, whatever those may be, I don't think I'm waking up determining how to sort of, I guess, exercise something. I guess what I'm saying, I don't think anyone's intentionally trying to harm children. Certainly, we all make mistakes. We all have certain lanes, but this is really multi-layered sort of thing. So I don't know if it's safe or fair to say simply because of the data that children are being treated unfair. That's certainly not the case in all instances. Of course, that may be the case in some instances, but like you said, just a multi-layered thing. I guess I just really wanted to comment that I appreciate the approach of trying to get to a cause or trying to work with a person to unpack some things for themselves as opposed to pointing a finger and just simply saying, you shouldn't respond. Just removing that from a person's classroom management toolbox, I guess.
Ms. Davis?
I'm not sure if there's a question woven in here, but it's hard for me to look at data around SEL as just numbers like this because we're talking about human beings. And so it's kind of a question, but with these SEL building teams, is that similar? You talked about the DIT team. Is that similar to like a BIT team, a building team that looks at the data for their building and comes up with a plan based on the individuals in that building?
Close. It starts with, they started with adult competencies first. And so what is it? Because we know we have to work on ourselves before we.
And I remember you talking
Yep,
about that
we've done that.
Yeah.
And then
Castle.
each of the schools have created Smarty goals.
Mhm.
Typically, there's I think 2 Smarty goals around, maybe two Smarty goals per school are really what they're working on. And it varied. It wasn't a cookie cutter Smarty goal by any stretch because their leadership teams got to look at their data and then what happens in the building. And then they were guided with the SEL consultants of what that was. And then really working on that. And so I know I haven't seen the data yet to see, did they achieve their Smarty goals and things of that nature, but that was something, taking ownership of what you're going to work on at your particular building was important.
Mhm. Yeah, for future, I guess I would be excited to hear about maybe just a building story of how they took their data, made a Smarty goal, and then how that worked for their building and how they saw growth. And then, yeah, just utilizing the people who work in that building to come up with what would be best for their kids.
Well, and the kids. So it'd be great to have the kids involved. Were they involved with the DIT process?
Some, I don't know if all 17 buildings, but I know some are, when you get to a little bit older at the middle school level and a little bit higher, they buildings that were functioning at a high level had teams. I would say different names, but leadership type teams in the building that would provide guidance.
And then the other thing that just kind of stood out to me was with some of the data, I saw high numbers at transitional grades. And so maybe just getting some data on what that looks. One of them that stood out was suspensions for 9th grade was very high. And my wonder is just, is that the same when it's a building that's 7, 12? Because we are moving in that direction, and just maybe some information on what we provide to students and families in those transitional years.
That might be an opportunity for a problem of practice, specifically around those transitional grades. Because if you look at, it's between 5th and 9th grade, which are those middle years, and we can make all sorts of assumptions and theories around, because children having more freedom and then you also add hormones and other things that might be at play. And again, I'm just saying what comes to my mind.
Yeah, but what's exciting for me as a board member, I guess, is hearing maybe not all the details of all of that, but how are our building teams working around those, if that makes sense.
And I think to add to President Williams' request for more aggregated data like we did last year was, I recall distinctively that we were kind of grouping the suspensions into one category versus trying to see what the different types are, because I think that would be good to kind of, if there's a trend heading in or we see an abundance in a particular type of suspension, I think it'd be easy to kind of see where some of those gaps are, to see if there's some innovation around addressing some of those things.
And I would just push on that, and maybe I'm not explaining myself well, but I would push on more emphasis on hearing how the buildings are looking at that data
Correct.
than bringing all of the segregated data to us, if that makes sense. Like, I want to hear how our buildings are
Like
looking
building
at
are looking at it. Yeah.
that data, because we can't do everything from this table. I want to hear how they're working with that data.
I think both, actually. I would like to see the fully disaggregated data and an example of how someone addressed it.
I have another question for you. I'm just wondering, what is the interaction with our families with regards to the suspensions, the behavioral issues? Is there any educational piece there that is happening? I think previously I mentioned something about like what type of requirement is for those families when their student is returning. Is there any kind of education or expectation that's being shared with them with regards to their child's behavior or whatever the incident was?
So I know there's a lot that happens along the way, and so I know a lot of schools, what they do is we want to make sure your first interaction is not a negative interaction, and we know that's a kind of an old practice, for many years, that building those relationships with parents first. So when you do have to call them, there's a way that you're working together. And so I want to say that first, and then if a scholar happens to is suspended, there is a meeting or a plan in place to support the scholar and the family and kind of the staff member collectively coming together, and so that does happen, and so that's part of the system that we have here in GRPS when someone's coming back from a suspension or gone for a long time, that we want to welcome that scholar back. But in a way that we can sit down and come together to figure out what's the best plan.
I think my last comment is kind of transitioning off of your statement, President Williams. And one of the things that I was looking at when you talked about family engagement, I started to see some of the groupings were kind of grouped into one, and I'm going to just separate one in particular. So when I think about the aspects of the different representation that the district has around the many different languages, and I see that we had like Black or African American, we also know that we have refugees or immigrants also that could potentially fit in there. So if we can have that also separate, are we seeing again a pattern? Is it with, let's say, our different cultures that make up within that? It just seems like it's grouped into one, and it would love to be, if, let's say if it was some from our African students that migrated from Africa, and we're seeing high numbers within that population, therefore is it a language barrier that is presenting itself as an issue? I just think it grouped them all into one from the presentation.
That we, from our demographics, separate, I'm saying I don't know, that we separate it out, teased out that clearly.
We could do language learners though, probably, right?
Yeah, you could do English language, yes, English language learners, but not like.
However we need to get it.
That's a good point.
I just think it would be good to be able to see that also. Are they being grouped into that, and is there a way to separate that?
I'll talk to the team on this one. That's a really good question. I haven't seen it that way, but it doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
I haven't either, but it isn't.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just one more quick thing. I know we keep saying, oh, one more. I'm so sorry. But just thinking about all of the things that we're trying to kind of integrate into this work, while, and I do appreciate it, don't get me wrong, but I do think that, you know, kind of grabbing, right, Castle curriculum off the shelf and trying to integrate it within our students is one thing, but empowering our, I mean, we have a huge asset within our advocates and our interventionists, and I do know that while I was in that role, you know, things have developed possibly, but I do know that we were very underutilized within this work. And I tried to do this work within that role, but I know that that wasn't necessarily something that we had an entire, you know, PD on. But I would love to just see, you know, this kind of be developed within those roles. So, you know, we don't entirely have to rely on, okay, well, this is what we're teaching here, this is what we got off the shelf here, and we're going to integrate it with our students, because our staff knows our kids better than anyone else, right? They're on the ground with our families, with our students every day, and I just want to lean into their you know, expertise and really kind of make it what they believe could be successful with our students, with behavior issues, with suspension data and stuff like that. But I would, you know, and again, I know you're not probably having all this data with you, but I would love to see what professional development is happening within those roles that kind of integrates into their current roles of interventionists and advocates, because I think there's some success there, and I would just love to see that be tapped into.
All righty. Thank you very much. Thank you. All righty, now we are moving on to our action items. First action item we have is policy 1300 with regards to meetings. This is a second reading adoption. Are there any questions with regards to this? Is there a motion to approve policy 1300?
Motion.
Support.
Yes. Ms. Melton?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mr. Ross?
Yes.
Ms. Wade?
Yes.
Mr. Davis? Ms. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Eatman?
Yes.
President Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next, we have the schedule for the 2024 board meetings for the remainder of the year. Is there any questions with regards to that schedule?
Oh, these are only meetings?
Correct. Correct.
For regular meetings.
Regular.
Yeah,
Sessions in addition.
including work sessions, yeah.
Is there a motion to support the 2024 board meeting schedule?
Support. Second. I'll second.
Mr. Eatman and Mr. Ross.
Okay, Ms. Lewis, yes. Ms. Melton?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mr. Ross?
Yes.
Jackie's excused. Ms. Wade?
Yes.
Ms. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Eatman?
Yes.
President Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next, we have a resolution for the Grand Rapids Board of Education to appoint a hearing officer with regards to handling some I want to say this language right, so give me a second. So I'm gonna go find it again. This is a hearing officer that will be appointed to serve as a hearing with regards to matters that authorize, including, wait a minute, let me, just this going, okay. To address
Personnel matter.
a general and administrative matter with regards to the district concerning the recommendation of a termination. Does that make sense?
You might have to
So
start
this is
over.
a matter where we are looking again to bring in a hearing administrator for the matter of addressing an administrative termination. Is that simple enough?
Yes.
All right. Are there any questions with regards to this resolution? Is there support for the resolution for the Grand Rapids Board of Education to appoint a hearing officer?
Support.
Mr.
I'm
Ross?
saying a motion. I'm sorry.
Mr. Ross, was that Mr. Ross?
Yes, is there support? Support. Ms. Davis?
Okay. All right, Ms. Lewis, yes. Ms. Melton? Yes. Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mr. Ross?
Yes.
Ms. Shockey's excused. Ms. Wade?
Yes.
Ms. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Reitman?
Yes.
President Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next, we have the resolution for the adoption of the general operating budget for 2024. Are there any questions with regards to this resolution? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the adoption of the general operating budget for 24 through 25 school year?
So moved.
I'm sorry, missed the first one.
Ms. Davis? Is there support?
Support.
Mr. Ross?
Okay, Ms. Lewis, yes. Ms. Melton?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Wade?
Yes.
Ms. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Reitman?
Yes.
President Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries.
And we have the resolution for the adoption of the special revenue budget for 24-25. Any questions, concerns? Is there a motion to approve the adoption of the special revenue budget resolution?
So moved.
Ms. Davis, is there support?
Support.
Mr. Ross?
Ms. Melton?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis, yes, too. Ms. Melton? Mr. Rodriguez, skip myself.
Yes.
Mr. Ross?
Yes.
Ms. Shockey's excused. Ms. Wade?
Yes.
Ms. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Reitman?
Yes.
President Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next, we have the resolution for the adoption of the debt retirement budget for 24-25. Any questions or concerns? Is there a motion to support the resolution for the adoption of the debt retirement budget for 24-25?
So moved.
Support.
All right, Ms. Lewis, yes. Ms. Melton?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mr. Ross?
Yes.
Ms. Shockey's excused. Ms. Wade?
Yes.
Ms. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Reitman?
Yes.
President Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next, we have our consent agenda grouping. Is there a motion to support the consent agenda grouping?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
There's support.
Support.
Ross?
Davis and Ross are really
Davis and Ross.
busy. Ms. Lewis, yes. Ms. Melton?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mr. Ross?
Yes.
Shockey's excused. Ms. Wade?
Yes.
Ms. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Reitman?
Yes.
President Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Righty. Next, we have our board president announcements. I do not have any at this time, and we are moving on to our next opportunity for public comment. Do we have any cards? We have no cards, all right. We will move along. Superintendent comments.
Okay, so Julie, can you bring that up? I thought this was extremely sweet. I have the artifact here, but I want you all to be able to see it in our community to see this as well, so.
I know these kids
I
all the
received,
time.
I received lots of mail, typically emails, and then when I get a letter, it's like, it's actually kind of fun. So this is from a community, or somebody who was in our community, I think. Good morning. Some time ago, I was in an antique store and found this circa 1912 picture card of your beautiful school of that era. Lots of changes, I bet. How it got to California, we'll never know. At any rate, I hope it brightens your day. I told myself, by golly, I think I will send it back home where it can be appreciated. Heritage is important. Enlarged and posted up is a nice way to start a conversation. Well, I got it for $6, so if you want it for $7 or $8, it would be really appreciated. Toss in a little postage if you would like to as well. My dear wife has passed, and she used to laugh at me and say, if you hear from one of those folks, you'll have to take me to lunch. On June 26th, I will celebrate my 96th birthday. I didn't know where all the time went, but I'm still going strong as far as I know. So I like to call my little hobby a redistribution of happiness. Our world sure needs it. And here's wishing you and your staff the very best. This is from Mr. Lowell Jorg from Stockton, California. And then he has a couple of PSs. PS, my daughter says that you should check me out on Google. PS, I'm sure you're going to enjoy the souvenir. And the United States Postal Service recently did a story on my hobby. And so this is of Sigsbee School in 1912. And it's a true postcard. Do you want to pass it that way? And
You guys have say so.
he bought it for $6. And so,
Put a check in the mail for
I was gonna say, let's collect a little couple dollars.
yes.
Yeah.
And I figured, since Mr. Jorg was kind enough to send it back to us, I certainly, as his birthday is coming up, 96 years, I'm going to send him a nice thank you, and I will pay for the card.
And I think that's cool for that.
He can take his daughter to dinner.
I think that's cool.
I doubt it.
Yeah.
I just thought it was really sweet.
Very nice.
Mr. Lowell Jorg, Joerg, and he lives in Stockton, California.
That's cute.
You said this is 1910?
1912.
Postmark. Wow.
So
Very nice.
I thought that was kind of cool. Yeah.
Something to the community.
Yes. And so I have to figure out, because I don't know how we keep those type of artifacts, but it should not live in my office, and I want to make sure that we put it somewhere where other people
It's
can
a
enjoy it.
beautiful building.
There is
Grand Rapids Public Library will take those artifacts as well.
Yeah.
Hold on to them.
So.
Yep, wonderful.
That's
my
beautiful.
comment for tonight.
All right, wonderful. We will go to our board comments. I will start with Ms. Melton.
Oh, our board comments. No comment tonight, thank you.
All righty, Mr. Rodriguez,
No comment.
Ms. Downs Lewis,
No.
Ms. Davis.
I guess I will just say that listening to the kids food basket presentation just made me think how lucky our district is to have so many amazing partnerships. And when I talk to friends from other districts, our kids have so many opportunities that other districts don't have. So sometimes we concentrate on what we're lacking, but we go on so many more field trips than the districts around us, and we have so many experiences. And so I just feel really lucky that my kids get to go to this district.
Mr. Eatman.
I'm actually shocked there were so many no comments. But I will say this, as I'm gonna break that with your help. Thank you all for coming out. I mean, it is hot outside. It is cold in here.
It's freezing in here.
But it's super excited for you all to come out and continue to engage with us. We all know that some of these reports or anything can not sit favorable for some and sit favorable for others. And so the aspect that we are in community together to really address these issues that we see our scholars are dealing with is commendable. And it means that we have more work to do, but along with your help. And so thank you all for being here and continuously working alongside of us. That's all.
Mr. Ross? Ms. White?
Thank you for your comment, Ms. Davis. And we do the serious stuff up here, but I always love hearing the stories of the partnerships and the things that are happening at the individual schools, and having a kid here for about 10 years in this district and then one out of the district. I see a lot of differences, and one of the huge differences is that when my child in high school in a different district was a number for real. I don't think nobody knew her well enough as, my other daughter that was in a high school here in this district. The relationships, the close-knit relationships. I think all of our high schools have high schoolers and students have the privilege of having those in our schools. And so there are some great things happening. And thank you, Ms. Davis, for bringing that up.
I would like to say thanks to everyone for coming out and being a part of this and sharing with us. Thanks to all the staff who made sure we had a wonderful school year. And I would like to say thanks to the foundation for raising those dollars for our young people to be able to engage in sports and activities. That's super important. And all the alumni that give and support this district time and again. I appreciate that. And then I lift up the City League that was having events over the weekend that, again, just continue to bring our alumni together, continue to try to support this district, and really highlight the great work of Grand Rapids Public Schools. This meeting is adjourned.